Double Dutch Jump Rope by Ashlyn Avila and Nika Lampe. The goal is for each participant to be able to jump through a double Dutch jump rope 3 to 8 times within a 30-second time frame, including correct critical features like jump height, appropriate knee flexion, and jump timing. Here is our expert model from the vantage point of perpendicular to the frontal plane. The critical features we are looking for are 45 degrees of knee flexion, 3 inches jump height, 30 to 45 degrees of plantar flexion, 0 degrees cervical flexion, and 0 degrees of shoulder abduction. Here's an alternate view of the expert model from perpendicular to the sagittal plane vantage point. Here's student 1's initial attempt at rope turning. The wrists are crossing over the midline. This is because there is too much adduction and shoulder rotation. Our intervention included a visual model. Teacher modeled correct movement and timing. Student reproduced with no longer crossing the midline. Here is student 2's initial attempt at rope turning without the rope. Here we see a very similar error with wrists crossing the midline. Here's student 3's initial attempt, and we can see a similar problem. Wrists are crossing the midline. For the intervention, we used a visual model and exaggeration as well, exaggerating the size of the circles and also using the cue of thumb to nose. After intervention, participant 2 and 3 are now showing the appropriate amount of adduction and shoulder rotation, as well as elbow flexion. Participant 1's rope turning attempt with the rope in hand shows elbow flexion that is appropriate, as well as wrists staying separated by the midline. Participant 2 and 3's rope turning session with the rope in hand shows adequate elbow flexion as well as rhythmic turning of the ropes. Participant 1's initial non-continuous jump trial showed inconsistent jump height and the knees not always being flexed enough to prepare for the subsequent jump. Participant was asked to reproduce the movement based on previous instruction and demonstration, and instructors were cueing and correcting movements. Participant 2's initial trial of the non-continuous jump showed excessive dorsiflexion during the force phase of the jump. Participant 3's initial trial of the non-continuous jump showed an insufficient level of knee flexion during the preparation and also the follow-through phases. Mechanical guidance was used as an intervention for participant 1. A beige hair clip that was 5 inches long was placed on a blue folder so that it would stand out more. The participant was able to see that that was too high of a jump height, and it was also able to be used as a cue to keep his jump height more consistent. An environmental intervention was used for both participant 2 and 3, being a full-length mirror so they could view and self-check their errors. Participant 2 was able to self-check and monitor their ankle flexion during the force phase of their jump, which we can see was corrected here in their post-intervention trial. Participant 3 was able to use self-check to monitor their prep, force, and follow-through phase in order to correct the insufficient level of knee flexion during the preparation and follow-through phases, as we can see corrected here. During session 3, participant 1 was experiencing excessive jump heights. Visual modeling via video replay was utilized to show the learner the level of excessive jump height they were reaching. Playback of the expert model was also utilized so students could compare their performance and correct their own errors. During Session 3, Participant 2 was shown to have excessive jump height as well as excessive arm abduction. Exaggeration as an intervention was used first, where the instructor exaggerated the incorrect arm movements and then immediately followed by exaggerating the correct arm movements. After that, video replay was used, very similar to Participant 1, to show the level of excessive jump height they were reaching. After the intervention, jump height and arm abduction are acceptable. During Session 3, Participant 3 showed excessive jump height as well as inadequate knee flexion. The intervention we used was a visual model via visual replay to show the learner the excessive level of jump height they were reaching as well as the level of inadequate knee flexion they were experiencing during the preparation phase. During Session 4, Participant 1 was showing minimal knee flexion on the preparation and landing phases. The intervention of task modification was utilized where the task of jumping double dutch was modified to jumping with just one rope, turning, which allowed the learner to focus on the appropriate level of knee flexion during the prep and follow-through phase of jumping. During Session 4, Participant 2 showed good knee and hip flexion during the preparation and landing, but their timing and rhythm was significantly off. The intervention used was conditioning, where the instructor clapped to aid with proper timing of each jump. During Session 4, Participant 3 initially showed good timing, but the entrance of their jump landed far from the middle, as well as they showed excessive cervical spine flexion. Visual modeling and manual guidance were used to correct the level of excessive cervical spine flexion. The learner went through each phase of the skill, preparation, force, and follow-through, and was stopped at each step and guided into the proper positioning with special attention to the cervical spine. During Session 5, Participant 1 had a great confident entry, but poor timing in the entrance and during the first two jumps. The jump height was also too high during the entrance, and also at some points the participant is seen landing on the feet separately instead of at the same time. The first intervention was task modification, where jumping with two ropes was modified to one so the learner could focus on the timing of the entrance and subsequent jumps. An environmental intervention was used where the learner jumped in front of a mirror in good lighting to see the height of their own jump and self-correct their jump height. During Session 5, Participant 2 began to jump off-center in the middle of the ropes, and also showed too much knee flexion and hip flexion, but only when entering the ropes and during the first prep phase while in the ropes. Mechanical guidance was used as an intervention with a piece of tape marking on the floor the middle of the two ropes visually so the jumper was more easily able to identify the correct position within the ropes. Conditioning was also used as an intervention where the instructor and the learner jumped together to work on the prep by jumping upwards and landing in the prep position and then holding for 3 seconds and repeating until knee and hip flexion were satisfactory. During session 5, participant 3 did a good job holding their arms close to the body, but their jump was too low in height, and the cervical spine was still excessively flexing. Timing after ending the ropes was also a little off. The intervention of task modification was used, where the task of jumping double Dutch rope with 2 ropes was modified to using 1 rope for learning and building confidence on the timing of the entrance. Exaggeration was also used. The instructor modeled an exaggerated version of the correct prep and force phase, with dorsiflexion of the foot and flexion of the knee being exaggerated. During session 6, participant 1 did a great job holding the arms close to the body, landing on the ball of the foot, and also entering from the turner's shoulders. But what they didn't do well was jumping at an excessive height and also showing poor timing and rhythm well within the ropes. Participant 2 had great jump height, landing on the ball of the foot, arms were close to the body, the entrance was from the shoulder of the turner, the ankle was plantar flexed, and the knees and hips were adequately flexed. The only issue was rhythm and timing. At this point, it was up to the students to decide what level they were on and what they could excel at. Some students may only be able to jump with a single rope non-continuously, while others would be at different stages of mastery within the progression. Students can choose to practice anywhere within the range of jumping with 1 rope non-continuously or jumping in a double Dutch rope while bouncing a ball. It will be up to the students to choose which level they perform at. During session 6, participant 3 held the arms close to the body, had great timing and rhythm, landed on the ball of the foot, and also had really good jump height. The only problem was still excessive cervical spine flexion.
To revisit our goal, we stated that we wanted our participants to jump 3 to 8 times within a 30-second time period while following important critical features. As you can see, participant 1 had a lot of progress going on, and while he did meet 3 jumps within 30 seconds, some of the critical features were off, such as jump height, knee flexion, and arm abduction. Here we have participant 2, whose first attempt was pretty great for being a beginner, but also we see too much knee flexion, quite a bit of elbow flexion and extension, which was also not following our critical cue. However, for participant 2 in their final attempt, you can see a lot less knee flexion more appropriately. Also, there's a lot less elbow extension and flexion. This was probably not our best session with participant 2. There were other factors, such as one of our group members having an issue with an injury, as well as our participants being a little burnt out from the project. However, I would say that our participant number 2 did meet the goal of making 3 to 8 jumps, as he did well over 8 jumps within a 30-second time period, and also followed the critical features, such as appropriate knee flexion, slight cervical flexion, and here we have participant 3, who I would say grew the most in this project. Participant 3 was facing the incorrect direction in the beginning, couldn't quite jump through the jump rope. However, in our final attempt, as you can see, he makes it quite a few times and does reach at least that 3 minimum goal with proper knee flexion, minimal shoulder and arm abduction, and proper ankle plantar and dorsiflexion. Overall, 2 of our 3 participants exceeded in our goal, and the others still did pretty great for being their first time, all things considered. This project shows a lot of growth in all of our participants.